Hello, my name is John Nordberg. This is the fifth part of a science film that covers truly life-changing physics. This part is not very technical. Some people might wish to view this part without first seeing the earlier parts of this film. However, I highly recommend that you view all of the video clips for this film in order. Towards the end of this part, part 5, the film will get very specialized and only applies to the money people and to the politicians. At that point, I'll give you a heads up. When I get to that point, I can understand why most people will want to skip ahead to part 6, getting water and helping the environment. Part of this section is about money, lots of money, trillions of dollars. Part of this is a proposal from me to you. A small part of this is about politics. Part of this section is about regulation. Part of this is for the owners and executives of energy companies. Part of this is for venture capitalists. Part of this is about my plans for a fusion energy laboratory. If one of these topics doesn't interest you, I understand. However, I bet most people will find most of this very interesting. If you are a person that is interested in making a lot of money, then this section might help you. A better way of thinking of this is about creating new wealth. If you are a venture capitalist, then from your point of view, this section is a proposal to help you make a lot of money. For some, it may be worth millions. If you are an owner or an executive that heads an energy company, then from your point of view, this section is a proposal for building fusion power plants. For some, it may be worth billions. If you are a politician, then from your point of view, this section is a proposal with a number of specific steps that you can take to help the United States. For the United States, it may be worth trillions. If you are a politician or a voter, then this section is about doing your part for the United States. If any of these situations describe you, then you need to watch this section. Really, it is in your best interest. To summarize the earlier sections of this film, first I answered the question, what is time? The explanation leads to the speed of light definition of time. Second, I explained how to unify physics. This new physics is embodied in a simple unifying equation. My grand unification theory is called the ball of light particle model. Third, I explained a new type of commercial fusion power plant. The United States Patent Office has issued me a patent for it. So far, my inexpensive tests work. However, expensive tests are still required. If my designs perform as expected, then we can benefit from fusion energy now. Fourth, I demonstrated a simple, inexpensive, clear-cut experiment. It shows how this new physics goes beyond definitions and theory. Again, it is trivial to demonstrate that spherical waves exist and hemispheric coils work. Now, in this section, we need to ponder what steps do we need to take to obtain fusion energy. Some of the steps involve money. Some involve regulation. Some involve politics. So first, I introduced the new physics. Second, I introduced new technology. Now, what steps must we take to transform this technology into a life-changing innovation? This section is not about physics. It is about the future. There are guesses. There are guesstimates. There is imagination. There is vision. A fair amount of this section is not about logic. It is about emotion. Over the years, I've met skeptical people. They have heard that scientists have proven relativity is correct. Therefore, without any consideration, they assume I could not be right. Wrong. That is incorrect reasoning. Think of my explanation for time as a special case within Einstein's special theory of relativity. Every physical experiment that could be said to prove special relativity can also be said to prove this new understanding of time. I admit, this new physics is not just a definition. Indeed, I have paired up this definition for time with additional physics, and that additional physics can be categorized as a physical theory. Granted, the theoretical parts of this new physics may have mistakes. Parts of the theory might be wrong. However, most people agree this new physics immediately makes sense. I am certain the speed of light definition of time can dramatically change physics all on its own. This definition is more than sufficient to be a big deal for physics. However, a grand unification theory, one that works, will change physics in a much faster fashion. How fast will things change? I don't know. It could continue to creep along at its present slow rate, or suddenly it could explode and go viral. To summarize, as this new physics creeps into everyday life, it will become life-changing. People will think of time differently. People will use time differently. People will measure time differently. Many minor parts of our culture will change. For example, you may have noticed people are always saying everything is relative. As I've shown earlier, this new physics makes it absolutely clear that is wrong. Everything is not relative. There will be major changes. That is a minor change. This new physics will require some thought and some work. Many of the changes will take some getting used to. Again, some changes will be minor and some will be major. An example of a major change is people must relearn the seemingly simple concept of velocity. From now on, velocities will be seen as the fractions of two distances. A distance divided by another distance, not a distance divided by time. People will need to relearn that a velocity is the distance an object travels divided by the distance light travels. This is not a theory. This is not an opinion. This is the solution to one of the biggest problems in the history of physics. This will be a major change. As far as changes go, in my opinion, the biggest changes will result from the dramatic benefits we will gain from finally having commercial fusion energy. To be sure, this new physics will have a ripple effect on things like the economy and the environment. There will be a lot of changes. Some will be predictable, some will be unpredictable. Now, let us delve into this a little deeper. Let us ponder how this new physics will change our lives. First, let me point out, a commercial fusion power plant is not a weapon. It cannot become a weapon. It does not enable a country to make nuclear weapons. On the other hand, the older fission power plants can be used as weapons, and they can be used to make nuclear weapons. In comparison, on just this one point, fusion is safe and fission is dangerous. Many countries want to build fission power plants. Usually they claim they want nuclear fission power plants to generate electricity. Secretly, some of these countries really want to make nuclear weapons. We have seen this game played out before with North Korea, where they actually succeeded in building nuclear weapons. Right now, the world is watching this game play out with Iran, and they will have them soon. It's a dangerous game. Indeed, a country that wants to build fission power plants could become a nuclear threat. However, a country that just wants to build fusion power plants is not a nuclear threat. When we have working fusion power plants, a wonderful political option will be available to us. Wealthy countries like the United States could offer fusion power plants to non-nuclear countries as an incentive to give up or to not build fission power plants to help ensure that they do not build nuclear weapons. If they do not have fission power plants, then this will greatly limit the ability of these countries to make nuclear weapons. This alone would make the world much safer. By the way, don't worry about any of the energy companies that currently own and operate fission power plants. Financially, they will be better off with fusion. They understand this. As long as they can have new fusion power plants, they will not be unhappy about getting rid of fission. They already know how to operate nuclear power plants. So new fusion, obviously they would prefer new fusion, but either way, they will not mind. These companies already have power plant sites. They already have their big expensive transformers and the other equipment that connects the power plants to the electrical grid. In short, they will be excited to get fusion. What will happen to all the old nuclear fission power plants? Our real problem is the old nuclear fission power plants. The old fission power plants are, well, getting old. At this time, their owners have two main options. Either they will be required to make expensive upgrades and improvements so that they can continue to operate them safely, or they will need to decommission these old plants. Both options are expensive. Obviously, these companies will not like either of these huge expenses. Not only do they have the present problem of getting rid of all of the radioactive fuel waste that has been piling up, they also need to dispose of the internal parts of their reactors, parts that have also become highly radioactive. If the owners of these plants do not have a way to deal with this dilemma, essentially a looming financial crisis, then there could be a big problem on the horizon for us taxpayers. To avoid the huge expense, the owners might simply jump ship and declare bankruptcy. Then they will not need to worry about the expense involved in decommissioning these old nuclear fission power plants. That liability will simply fall to the taxpayers. However, if they can build new fusion power plants, then that will help them financially. The taxpayers will not need to foot the bill for the old plants. The federal government will have a significant leverage that will ensure these entities will properly decommission their old fission power plants instead of choosing bankruptcy. Fusion is a win-win for everybody, especially the owners of the fission power plants. Literally at this time, nobody has a vested interest in fission power. Every single company that currently makes money on fission could instead be making money on fusion. Every single utility that currently operates fission power plants will be extremely excited to operate fusion power plants instead. They will be more profitable and they will have much less risk. In summary, in the coming years, it just makes sense to replace the old fission power plants with these new fusion power plants.